This is Mr. Roberts at Shasta High School, and this is Look at the Honors Math 1, Chapter 7 test. This is being recorded on March 1st, 2017. Thanks for watching, and I hope you find this helpful. So the first question basically is asking us to be able to look at a diagram and identify which of our 5 triangle congruence conditions could be used to establish that a pair of triangles are congruent. We'll be using this more and more as we proceed to other chapters, but for right now, just can you identify them? In this first diagram, I can see that I've got a couple matching pairs of angles. So for example, I can see that angle C and angle E are congruent to each other. And I also see that I've got angle T and angle A are congruent, and also the side that connects them, right? This side ET is congruent to this side CA. So when I look at it, I can just follow this pattern, and you can see I've got an angle, a side, an angle, a side, and then an angle. And on the other diagram, in the same order, right? I've got this congruent angle, this congruent side, and this congruent angle. So this is the angle side angle congruence condition. The second one that we have, I can see here I've got a pair of sides that are congruent, right? I've got this side is congruent to this side. I've got this pair of sides are congruent. And what I have is the angles in between them are congruent, right? This angle in between. And when we see this, right, we've observed in Desmos and we've observed in class that when this condition is met, it forces the other angles and the other sides to line up. And there is a series of transformations that would map one triangle onto the other. So this is our side and then the angle and then the side congruence condition, right? So we've got side, angle, side. And notice that we're saying, look, the angle that is congruent is in between the pairs of congruent sides. We have SAS congruence. The next one that we have, this is pretty straightforward, right? We've got the 3 pairs of congruent sides. These sides are congruent. These sides are congruent. I see that by the tick marks. And these sides are congruent. So this is clearly the side, side, side congruence condition. The fourth one that we had was this diagram. And on here, you'll notice that the sides are not in between, right? It's not the sides in between that are marked congruent. It's some other side that's outside of that. So what we have here is we've got this angle is congruent to this angle. And then we jump to another angle is congruent to another angle. And then the last thing we have is that this side is congruent to this side. So this congruence pattern that we see is angle, angle, and then the side, right? Angle, angle, and then the side. So notice that it has to be the corresponding side, right? This is the next one after that angle, but this is our angle. Oops, angle, angle, side congruence condition. And the final one that we have over here, first of all, we notice that they're both right triangles, and a couple things we could do, right? We could say, hey, because of the fact that this leg is congruent to this leg, and this hypotenuse is congruent to this hypotenuse, I could use the Pythagorean theorem and say, hey, in all cases, this hypotenuse or this other leg is going to equal this other leg, right? So I'm just looking at the general pattern here. If I take a leg that is marked in red and I square it, and I add to that the other leg, and I square that, you can see the legs are red and green. I will get the same value as if I took the hypotenuse and I squared that. So I could say, after an application of the Pythagorean theorem, I can demonstrate that all the sides are the same. So with the Pythagorean theorem plus what was given, I could say, oh, these triangles are congruent by side, side, side congruence, right? Which is we've already established as one of our triangle congruence conditions. But rather than do that, rather than show that the angle marked in green is the same value in each one, we can just say, look, if they are right triangles, right, they have a hypotenuse and they have legs. If it's a right triangle, we can say these are congruent by hypotenuse and leg, hypotenuse and leg. So it feels like this one only needs 2 conditions to be met, but don't forget it needs to be a right angled triangle. So we have right angles, their hypotenuses are congruent, and the legs are congruent. Now, if I had the the two legs, if I had the green, for example, if I had this one and the right angle, I would be saying they're congruent by side angle side, right? But we already have that. So this is kind of, it's a different setup. We've got two right triangles, we've got congruent hypotenuses and corresponding congruent legs, so HL.